You know, you loving them after they have done just unforgivable stuff to you is not actually a sign that you love them. It's a symptom of being in a trauma bond. Did you know that? Let that settle, right? Let that kind of settle in. It's not love, it's a trauma bond. You don't love someone who hurts you. It feels like love. Trauma bonds have this really interesting way of mimicking what love feels like. And moreover, I know that you want it to be love. I know that you want the story to be worth it. You want the time that you've invested in this relationship to be worth it. You want the pain to mean something. I get that. But what if the fact that you're still hoping and still trying and still making excuses, what if that isn't love at all? What if that's fear? What if this is all based on hope? And potential and desire for change and a struggle to detach, right? What if it's the addiction to who they pretended to be? Trauma bonds are addictions, not necessarily in the same way as a substance abuse addiction, but and you're not addicted to the person, but you're addicted to the cycle. And there's a lot of chemicals going on. You can watch other videos of mine to really understand the science behind what's going on. But like, what if this isn't love? What if it's the part of you that learned that this kind of treatment is normal or this kind of treatment is what you deserve? What if that's what this is and it's not actually love? So if this is your first time here watching my videos, my name is Lisa Sunny and I am a abuse recovery coach. I'm a trauma bond expert. I'm a speaker. I'm an author of 4 books. But what really matters is that I've lived this and I've been trauma bonded, and I will never forget what it was like to hear the phrase trauma bond and to then kind of shift from, okay, so this has a name, and this is why I feel so attached to this person that I love but really can't stand. And it was like, okay, so it's I'm in love and a trauma bond. They don't coexist. It's not both, right? I went back after I swore that I wouldn't, after I was so done, and I've questioned my sanity, I've blamed myself, I have begged someone to love me, and this person was hurting me. And now I help women around the world escape these relationships and just kind of get out of that stuckness of being in these relationships, and the place where you know it's toxic, but for some reason you just can't seem to let it go. You can't leave. You know you need to, but you also just can't imagine leaving. Sometimes people feel really guilty, really responsible for the person. You might feel afraid. That fear could be afraid of the future, afraid for your physical safety, afraid for your family, for your children. You know that it hurts, but you still miss them, or you still feel like you can't leave. And a lot of that is wrapped up in cognitive dissonance. But if you're relating to this, then I'm talking to you. And I'm glad you're here because we need to talk about this, because I want to teach you some things that are going to be really pivotal in your journey to heal and kind of get through this and really understand what's happening. So let's talk about why you think this is love. And I always want to say this in the most respectful way possible, because it's like, I get that feeling. Trust me, I've been there. I get that it's a trauma bond. I get that it's an unhealthy attachment. I get that it's abuse, even if you're at that stage. But also, I love this person. But let's really talk about why that's so dangerous. It feels like love, and this is that lie that really keeps you stuck. But the truth is, you are associating love with intensity. And maybe he swept you off your feet, and the emotional highs, they're like a drug. And nobody has ever made you feel so seen, so connected, so special. I remember that soulmate feeling like magic. And it was truly, for me, I was like, this is what love is. If this is love, I have never felt love before, because this is everything. It was manufactured and I didn't know it. But you think that the pain maybe means it matters, right? Like, everybody goes through this stuff, or we've been through so much together. And I always want to push back. Are you sure that you've been through so much together? Or did he put you through so much? Right? That's a huge difference in just that slight shift of language. But you have probably been taught that love requires suffering, that if you fight, if you try, if it's hard work, and we hear that, right? Relationships are hard work. Then you think it's real. If you stay, it proves your love. If you stay, it proves your strength. And these abusers will always be the ones that are like, you're a quitter, you're giving up on me. And they're preying on that, right? You're weak if you leave. Mine told me I was weak if I left. And I was like, oh, I'm going to prove that I'm strong. Strength is in leaving, not to say that staying is weak. Staying is a complicated decision with many factors that play into this, but let's keep talking about why you think this is love. Maybe you think the beginning of the relationship is the truth. The beginning of the relationship is when everything was great, and that's that person that you fell in love with. You know him. So, this version that's mean or cruel or abusive, like maybe you did something to cause it. Maybe his mom was mean to him. Maybe his ex was a B word. Maybe all the things we tell ourselves, right? You believe that they could change, right? He love bombed you, promised you forever, told you that you were different. And I swear we just chase that version, even though that version has been gone for months, maybe even years. Or you see glimpses of that version, or it sort of oscillates, right? From hot to cold, good to bad. He is the pain and the comfort, the knife and the band aid. That happens so frequently, and you become so attached. But what you're attached to is their potential. And what you need to see is the patterns. The patterns are screaming, the patterns are clear, but when you're in it, it's very hard to see the patterns. It's blurry, it's foggy, right? You see that person at the beginning and you think that that's the real them, and you think that if you just love better, if you try harder, if you're more supportive, if you explain it more clearly, then that version of him will come back. And sometimes maybe that works, but it doesn't really work because that bad version always comes back. And the reason why that version always comes back is because it's not a version that's exactly who he is. The kindness in these relationships exists to facilitate the bad. The kindness exists to facilitate the bad. The reason they are kind to you is because that's the thing that keeps you. That's the carrot dangling in front of you. But if you just comply, submit, behave, do what you're supposed to do, then they'll be kind. And the truth is, when you do those things, you never see the kindness for extended periods of time. It never lasts. And it never lasts because it's not who they are. And that's the point. It's not who they are. You're confusing this emotional roller coaster with passion, right? Going back to what I said about believing that this person, is who they were in the beginning, and this roller coaster that you're on caused by you, right? They blame shift. They don't take any accountability. It's all you. So you change your own behavior. But the truth is, love is not supposed to make you feel sick to your stomach. Love is not confusing. It's not. It's clear. It's not perfect, but it's not confusing. And so when they are cruel, you start to crave the relief. And again, there's a lot of chemicals in this. You can watch a free webinar that I once hosted called The Tricky Truths of Trauma Bonds and really learn about the chemical addiction. But when he apologizes, when he's kind, when you get the flowers or whatever the flowers equivalent is in his version of kindness towards you, when the silent treatment ends, when he's kind again, that relief starts to feel like love. We associate those things, but it's not. It is trauma bond reward conditioning. You are being conditioned to accept abuse, mistreatment. It's the most horrific cycle. It is so addictive because we start to associate pain with love. And this is where you feel stuck. So if it was really love, it wouldn't destroy your peace. You are genuinely emotionally starving, and you're getting these little breadcrumbs, and it feels like the greatest breadcrumbs you've ever had. They taste amazing, but it's because you're starving that they taste amazing. And I swear we think that the way we feel so deeply and so passionately for this person, that it means it's real love. But your feelings can be real and based on manipulation. So I understand that it feels like love, and I would even argue you do feel love towards that version of them that doesn't exist, right? You love their potential, you love who they pretended to be, fair, but do you love who they really are? You do not. You do not. You just don't know who they are yet. You're still experiencing cognitive dissonance. So, what a trauma bond really is, like if we are really just going to break this down, if you don't understand what's really happening chemically and psychologically, you're going to keep calling it love when your nervous system is actually just in survival mode. And this is something that you can explain when you give it words, when you label it something, when you really start to step into reality and see this, it is eye opening. This is a game changer to really understand it. So, let's talk about this cycle of abuse, right? You may have seen the picture. It's goes around in a circle and you are love bombed and you get affection and attention and flattery and connection and you feel chosen and seen and heard and loved and you feel like this this is what I've been waiting for. This is that feeling. I'm so connected to this person. They see me. Then there's a devaluation, and for some it's extreme and for some it's subtle. So it's different for everyone, right? So I mean, you hear all of therapists, coaches, we're talking about the cycle. Your story is in what we're explaining to you. So whatever this level of love bombing was, it's not always so grandiose, and the devaluation isn't always so obvious and extreme. But the compliments fade and criticism starts and control starts to really creep in, and you start working hard to get the old version of them back. And then maybe there's straight up abuse. And, verbal, emotional, could be physical. You are walking on eggshells. You're trying to manage their mood and sort of mitigate the risk of like, okay, if I don't do that, last time he got mad because I brought up a problem. So this time I won't bring up a problem, which is making yourself smaller and more invisible. You feel confused and terrified and worthless often, but there's always a reconciliation. And he apologizes, maybe, because some don't apologize at all, and the ones that do are not truly apologizing. It's absolutely feigned apology. And he makes an excuse. He blames stress. He says you misunderstood. He explains to you with clarity and logic why you actually caused to this, why you misunderstood, and he's nice again. And so relief floods your system. You're like, "Oh, okay, we're good again. We're back. We're back. Thank goodness." Repeat. And that's the cycle. And that will be the cycle until you break free. Now, it's not so easy as just choosing to break free, but let's get into that too. But why this hooks you, there's intermittent reinforcement. So when I'm talking about the kindness exists to facilitate the bad, this is that intermittent reinforcement. It's an unpredictable reward. And that's the point, right? Your brain is addicted to the possibility of love returning, not reality. You're not living in reality. In fact, you're probably living in a dual reality. You've got oxytocin rushes, dopamine rushes. He comes back, he apologizes, he shows affection again. And this is like a neurochemical surge in your brain. It's just flooded. It makes thinking clearly really difficult. Gaslighting also really scrambles your reality, and it's why they do it. You also look at things like sleep deprivation, fear, intimidation, but gaslighting as well. You start doubting yourself and you start to believe his lies over your memory, over what you can see, over evidence often. But I mean, you could literally have a recording and doubt yourself, although you often don't have recordings because they'll delete them if you have recordings and they know about it, right? But cognitive dissonance, I've referenced this, but your brain can't really hold the he loves me and he hurts me. You can't hold he is the pain and the comfort. He is the knife and the band-aid. Those things can't simultaneously be true without some kind of internal conflict. And so you rewrite the story to reduce the pain. That's unconscious. That's a survival mechanism. That's your brain trying to protect you by choosing what's easier to believe. Because if he's abusive, you picked him. If he's abusive, you have to leave. If he's abusive, what's wrong with you? So your brain is like, I can't, I can't. And so it's like, maybe it is a bad day. Maybe I did cause this. Because if you caused it, you can fix it. You're in control. If it's just a bad day, you can make his day better. And then it won't be so hard. But none of this works because who he really is a person who is abusive, a person who wants power and control. Often I see people also experience betrayal blindness, which is a fascinating term. and it gets confused with denial a lot. It's actually so much deeper than denial, but you basically protect your abuser to protect yourself from the truth of what it's feeling like to be betrayed by someone you love. So it's far beyond denial. It's like denial is it's presented to you, you see it and you just deny it. Betrayal blindness is like you don't even recognize the betrayal practically. It's just such an easy rationalization of, he cheated, but I didn't sleep with him often enough. And it's true. I was withholding, which that word is terrible. Then obviously, I mean, there's a million other factors, right? But fear of abandonment. If you have an abandonment wound, if you have an abandonment wound, rather, you will choose to accept these little emotional breadcrumbs, even over being alone. Alone can be paralyzingly sad, right? That feeling of what it would be like to be alone. You don't want to be alone. Even though I bet you feel really lonely in the relationship. I bet you feel more alone than you ever have, even when you've been single. I know I did. You are chemically bonded to someone who is hurting you, and your brain thinks that it's safer to stay than to leave, but it's not. And inside my signature trauma bond recovery course, I use my break and rebuild method. It's a three-step method, and we really unpack this step by step because I'm telling you, once you see this for what it is, you can stop blaming yourself and you can finally start taking your power back. So you can check out the trauma bond recovery course in the caption. When it hurts and you can't leave, that's where we all end up, right? We're in this, it hurts, and yet I can't leave. I know I need to leave, but I can't action it, right? Like how do you take that action and walk out the door? And I'm telling you, this is where most people get stuck. You know it's not healthy. You are exhausted and you're crying, maybe you're isolated, but you can't walk away. And so there's a big difference between love and trauma bonding. And again, love is not perfect. Love, you might have disagreements, but love is not these massive, sweeping, I'm confused and I'm hurt and I want to leave and I can't stand you to like, oh, I love this person. And you're shifting. We talk all these pop culture terms. It's idealization to devaluation. They can only see you in a black and white way because of their cognitive distortions. And you're riding this roller coaster and it's not healthy to be on this roller coaster. It's detrimental, in fact. You have made so many sacrifices that feel like that make leaving just feel like defeat, right? The amount of time you've invested, the amount of energy you've invested, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, and you're just going to walk away after everything you've put into this because they always make you feel like you're on the cusp of them changing, right? I was just about to change. I was just about to agree to therapy. It was going to change for you, but then you decided to quit. You decided to walk away. They'll reference being kinder to somebody else. They're not being kind to you. It doesn't matter how they treat other people. And I will sidebar, they will never be kinder to someone else. I have videos on that as well. But point is that sunken cost fallacy really just makes you feel like you've given too much and you can't quit now. It's too much. He's made you question your reality. You can't even tell what's real anymore. You have been conditioned, taught, conditioned to blame yourself for all of this. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I triggered him. Maybe it's me. Maybe this is me doing this. And so I can't leave because if I leave and the problem's me, I'm going to go have these problems with someone else and he's going to go off and be happy. And I've lost a good thing. I'm so lucky that he's tolerating me. Mine used to say that to me all the time that I was lucky that he tolerates me. And there was a part of me that was sort of starting to believe it. But I actually have to tell you, I was always kind of like, feels like the other way around. But I think that was the doubt. Like he got into my head and I also knew that it wasn't true, but is it? It's like and then there's that little voice that's in the back of your head coming at you. You're trying to prove your love to someone who is using that desire against you, who will always weaponize how hard you're trying. Now, you can look back into your childhood and start trying to figure out what made you feel like you needed to prove your love to get love, prove yourself to get love. We need to explore that. Absolutely. I often see the isolation from a support system. That's big. And, you know, It's not true for everyone. I have to admit, I didn't experience that same form of isolation, but I did experience that kind of control that kept you from telling too many people. So I had friends and I had family, but did I tell them what was really going on? No, because that was betraying him, right? That was slander. That was, you're going to, you know, shit talk me to all of your friends. You're going to, and so I kept quiet and no one knew, not even my closest friends really knew. So when I did tell them, it was like, whoa, this is so much information coming at me and I get it. But if you are ever distance, if you pull back, right, you start to be like, I don't like this. I don't want to be treated this way. And you might emotionally step back a bit, spend less time with him or do less for him. You're getting punished. You pull back, he love bombs or makes you feel guilty, whichever, reels you back in. And that's fundamentally the point. He reels you back in. Your nervous system is totally dysregulated. You're in constant fight or flight mode, right? And I always want to identify fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and you mistake this intensity, this feeling for love, for chemistry, for connection. And frankly, I know that we feel weak in this stage, but you're responding exactly how you were conditioned to respond, to stay, to make it work, to show your love. But what love actually feels like, and I think we need to get really honest about what healthy love actually looks and feels like, because if you've never experienced it, it can be really easy to mistake chaos for connection. And, people say this, but do you really know what I'm about to say, right? That real love is calm and grounded and safe. It's not anxious, it's not panicked, and it is not walking on eggshells. It's not managing somebody else's moods. My current partner, if he's in a mood because he's a human being, he might be like, listen, I had a really tough day at work. I'm in kind of a mood. So just, grace. Yeah. And he can have that grace. But it's not like I'm going to scream at you and I deserve forgiveness because I had a bad day, right? That's not because he's healthy. That's what it looks like. You're not confused about how they feel. I was saying this to a client in my private sessions earlier that this whole concept of being confused, that's a red flag. No, I don't never know what he's thinking or how he feels. It's like I feel like he hates me, but he says he loves me and he cheats, but he says he respects me, and I just don't understand. That confusion is enough to leave. That's a red flag right there. Our brains want to create clarity around that. You don't even need the clarity. The clarity is in the confusion. I'm confused. That's enough. I don't know where I stand with you. That's enough. Hard to get to that place. You need to really see your self worth in order to action that, but that's what I'm describing as an indicator of healthy love. When you feel confused, you will go, this isn't for me. Your no is respected. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to not want to be intimate with someone who makes you feel like you are not allowed to say no. That is coercion. And if you look at my Narcissism Unmasked playlist here on this channel, you'll see an interview between myself and Nat Lejeune. It's incredible. Please check out that video. I also have a webinar called Isn't Sex My Right? Why Sexual Coercion is Abuse. And you'll hear from a pastor, a reformed bad husband, Nat Lejeune herself, a sex therapist, and a psychologist, all talking about this concept of being able to say no. Okay. You can get that on my website, that workshop on my website. Um, you you feel emotionally seen in a healthy relationship. And again, it's not perfect. We're not expecting perfection, but you don't feel manipulated and you don't have to earn love with your suffering. You don't have to put up with more and more to earn this. I mean, especially with women, we're sort of groomed and conditioned to believe that forgiveness is necessary. We need to nurture, we need to give, we need to endlessly give. We absolutely do not. But I know that that message is everywhere. So you have to unlearn that. And real love slowly builds over time. It doesn't rush and start so quickly with intensity. That is almost never to the point of we don't even need to talk about it. That's not how real love starts. It feels safe. It's not intense. It's not overwhelming. And real love makes space for your healing. It absolutely does not re traumatize you. So if you're dealing with someone who makes you feel like you're too much or not enough, right? Especially in the same week, the same day, the same conversation, that is not love. You can't be too much and not enough at the same time. And I can just hear an abuser, right? You're too much of that and not enough of that. This is not build a woman, okay? If they don't love you as you are and they're constantly trying to just attack you for everything, and they'll flip that into you're trying to change me. You're trying to get that version of them back that they showed you who they were consistently in the beginning. And at no point do you have to accept abuse. You can accept flaws and not abuse. And don't let them convince you that abuse is just a flaw. It's a choice. Abuse is a choice. I don't care if they have NPD, BPD, or no diagnosis at all. Abuse is a choice. Period. The end. So when you start to figure out that it's not real love, and the truth is, I actually have a 2-minute quiz called Am I Trauma Bonded? It takes 2 minutes, like I said, instant results, and it will tell you right off the bat if you are in a trauma bond or if it's love. So if you want to know that, if you're not sure, take that free quiz and get your answer once and for all. Once you realize that you're in a trauma bond, the next step is always how do I get myself out? Sometimes it's how do I break the trauma bond, build this back into love? It's not how it works. I wish it was. I wish it was. You break your trauma bond, you're not going to want to be in the relationship anymore. You're not even going to want to. So, how do you get out physically, spiritually, emotionally? There's a framework. And so part of this method, this break and rebuild method that I use, I'm going to take you through pieces of it. So, understanding the pattern, and learning the cycle, naming the abuse, identifying the manipulation tactics. You're not romanticizing the past anymore. You're going to start reality testing your memories. You're going to educate yourself. This is the key. This is the watching the YouTube, listening to podcasts, reading the books, immersing yourself in reels and TikToks and whatever you're learning. Then you have to shift, and this is where you start to learn about yourself, learn what got you here. You're going to regulate your emotions. This is skill building, okay? Distress tolerance, emotional regulation, learn how to soothe your nervous system, breath work, grounding exercises. You're going to learn how to recognize your own triggers, how to manage and cope with them, allow yourself to grieve. And then the third step is rebuilding. You're building yourself a future that does not include them. You are rebuilding a future for you, and one that you will be happy and free and whole and love yourself. In this phase, you reconnect with your values, your routines, you build a support system or shift the system that you have to really be something that serves you and is reciprocal. You will find meaning and power in your survival. You start to take small actions. And all of this work is inside the Trauma Bond Recovery course. Over 3,200 people at this point have taken this course. The feedback is phenomenal. You're not building just awareness. You can get that all over, right? You can get that everywhere. This is transformation. This is the actions. This is the skills. This is the detail, the step by step how to that's missing in your life. And you don't just leave the person, you rebuild yourself. So if you've been telling yourself that it's love, but it hurts and you feel stuck, please hear me when I'm telling you this is not love. This is a trauma bond. The moment that you name it is the moment that you get your power back. And I want that for you. Bond does not break on insight alone, it breaks through actions. And that is the reason that I created the Trauma Bond Recovery course. It is literally everything that I wish that I had when I was going through my own and going back. And, I couldn't stop. And I built this course based on people asking me, well, oh my God, like, how did you do it? And to be honest, back then I was like, I have no idea. But I really sat and thought about it. So this course is built in personal experience, in scientific research, in clinical evidence of what works. And I was exhausted and terrified, and I did these things, and it got me out. This course is going to walk you through the education that you need, the emotional healing, and rebuilding your life step by step. No shame, just clarity. You want to approach yourself with curiosity, not judgment, and you're going to build clarity and strength. This is what you need. So you can check out all of these resources that I've talked about in the link in my profile right below. Please check it out. Join the Trauma Bond Recovery course. You can also work with me one on one. Thank you so much to everyone for being here today. And make sure that you are subscribed to my channel so that you do not miss more videos like this.